So, I oftentimes talk about the quote unquote dangers, right? Which of artificial light, especially coming from screens, specifically really after bedtime, or the confusing signaling we can get from staring at a bright screen first thing in the morning before sunrise. And so I still hold by all of this, right? I want to make sure that you recognize that artificial light after sunset is very confusing to the brain, to your body's ability to go to sleep and really get deep restorative sleep. And the same thing in the morning. If we artificially signal our circadian rhythm that it's the middle of the afternoon by staring at our cell phone first thing in the morning, again, that really drives circadian dysfunction, which, can lead to things like hormone imbalances, blood sugar dysregulation, obesity, thyroid issues, autoimmune conditions. There's so much that can happen when we don't let our body know what time of day it is. But that being said, we do live in a modern world. And so what are some of the things that we might be able to do in order to utilize technology in a smarter way? And so first and foremost, I'm going to give you a couple of things that I think I see, and this is especially true. I have taught college courses for quite some time. So if you are younger, if you're a college student, or if you're in high school or even younger, or if you're listening to this and your family members, you've got kids or grandkids who fall into that age range, this is especially important for our youth because screen usage in that demographic is just through the roof. So here are some ways we can be smarter about the way we utilize technology. Number one, I always encourage every screen that we look at, especially things like tablets and mobile phone screens and computer screens, to be as red as possible. That can be done either through utilizing the Twilight app on Android devices or by going to the accessibility settings on an iPhone or Apple products. So making the screen as red as possible. Why is this important? Well, blue light in and of itself isn't inherently bad for us. I mean, the sun is full of blue light. But what is chaotic for our body is a huge amount of blue light in a very unbalanced and unchanging way. That's the type of blue light we get from LED technology. So the LEDs that light up our phone screens and our tablet screens, and also the LEDs that technology that we get from modern light bulbs. It really is just full of a massive amount of blue light, and it's not balanced with the red and the infrared wavelengths like we would always find when there's blue light coming from the sun in a natural setting. And so these when we stare at these screens all day long, especially before sunrise, after sunset, we give our brain very confusing signaling and circadian signaling mechanisms and messages. A key thing to understand with this is that the way that my brain tells time, and I have a clock in my brain, it's called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. That suprachiasmatic nucleus tells time, the time of day, based on the amount and intensity of blue light that it's perceiving is in my environment. So remember, as that sun crosses the horizon first thing in the morning, that blue light starts to appear. And so my brain says, oh, okay, it's the start of the day. And as the sun gets higher and higher and higher into the sky, more and more blue light comes, and more intense blue light, brighter blue light comes through my eyes to my brain to signal that the day is changing, right? That the sun is going higher and eventually the sun reaches the high point in the sky. That's called solar noon. So that's where we're going to have the most blue light that my eyes are perceiving and communicating to that clock in my brain. And then after solar noon, the blue light starts to go away. And so there's less and less and less and less and less blue light until after sunset, there's no blue light in my environment. So it's really the perfect wavelength of light for my brain to be able to tell time, because it can key in on the small, minute fluctuations or increases that happen from sunrise until solar noon. And it can key in on the reduction of blue light that happens from solar noon down all the way to sunset. Unfortunately, modern LED technology uses those blue wavelengths of light, and it utilizes them in a very intense and unchanging way. That is unlike anything I ever would have encountered in nature. And so perceiving those intense amounts of blue light before sunrise and after sunset, or even the unchanging intense amount that I would get from screen usage throughout the day, will confuse circadian signaling. This can do things like cause my blood sugar to go up even without eating a meal. It can cause behaviors of addiction because those blue wavelengths actually drive dopamine hits in the brain. So it can cause me to be really addicted to screen technology use. And I see this in kids more and more. Also, they can be very hormone imbalancing because that blue, that introduction of blue should kick off a really key hormone cascade first thing in the morning that then kind of gets balanced out throughout the day. And I shouldn't have that hormone surge at night. And unfortunately these days, because we're staring at blue lit screens and have blue lit bulbs after the sun has set, we're seeing an increase in many varieties of hormone imbalances and symptoms of hormone imbalance, but especially in the literature, we're seeing a connection to hormone-driven cancers like breast, uterine, and prostate cancer. And so if you can make your screen red, that's huge. Red does not confuse the timing mechanism in your brain. The next one I always encourage people to do is to turn off notification sounds. That ding that can happen every time, we post something and then we get a like or a comment, right? Ding, ding, ding. That is a conditioning signal to pick up the phone, pick it back up and look at it, pick it back up and look at it. That drives dopamine reward pathways in the brain as well. And so again, we always reach for our cell phone. We want to continue to, we don't want it to be too far from it. We always want it to be close to us. Pick it up and look, pick it up and look. So simply by silencing notifications, we can really lower this dopamine response and addictive behavior when it comes to screen and technology use. The other thing I encourage is whenever possible is to put the cell phone, whenever you feel safe, like it's safe to do so, into either airplane mode, or if you use an Apple or an iPhone product, you have to use an app called One Tap Zap. Because unfortunately, iPhones are notorious for still emitting electromagnetic radiation, even when they're in airplane mode. And so One Tap Zap literally zaps all that radiation. If you have an Android phone, you can put it on airplane mode, and it does a good job to mitigate the majority of the radiation. That's just because that radiation, remember that non-native electromagnetic field radiation is a stressor to my mitochondria. And my mitochondria are responsible for so many things, but one of the key things that they're designed to do inside of me is to make water. They make this beautiful deuterium depleted water that my body and my cells structure into exclusion zone water, which is obviously a topic that I talk about a ton. It's one of my most favorite topics to lecture on and to talk about and to teach on, because I think it's fundamental to understand. And so we want to make sure that my mitochondria can make this water for me so I can maintain adequate exclusion zone water levels. In addition to this, though, Wi-Fi radiation in and of itself was shown to shrink exclusion zone levels. And so simply by having my cell phone on me, or a tablet, picture a tablet or a laptop directly on my body in such close proximity to my body for a majority of the day, or even just periodically, can shrink this beautiful battery of water that exists inside of me, that I'm really designed to optimize and keep fully charged so that I can maintain healthy cellular voltage, healthy cellular energy levels. I also have found research to indicate, and I have seen this to be true, when my kids do get screen usage, I have also found this to be true. And that is that a small screen tends to be more negatively impactful than a larger screen, such as a television screen. So there is something about being on a screen that's very close and being on these these apps and stuff where we're just really close and closely interacting with our devices, that I've noticed when my kids have been on that for too long, if they get to use it for too long, my husband and I would call it mush brain, right? It's like all of a sudden there's like a zombie brain, or there's an anger response associated with it. And so being aware that this is a thing, that this does exist. And, instead of having screens, these small screens that we're all scrolling on, let's take time to watch something as a family. I'm not encouraging screen use all the time, but again, I just want you to know that there is a difference physiologically between how our brain interacts with a small screen versus how our brain interacts with a television. I would also encourage us to balance when we use our screens. So can we take breaks where we're outside? So putting screen and technology down and balancing it with being outside. Putting screens and technology down and balancing it with being playful right? So playtime and imaginative time. Can we put our screens down and balance it with boredom? This is something that I think a lot of us have lost these days because we're very much in this instant gratification, information overload when it comes to our screen usage. I can literally search anything I could possibly want to know at the tip of my fingers immediately. And because of that, I think we're in this constant search for information, And instead, I think we are lacking boredom. So I encourage you to take time where you're literally sitting in a chair and just maybe you're bored, or you're sitting outside, even better. And maybe you're bored, but that's where the brain starts to say, oh, but we've got stuff that we can work on. Oh, we can be creative. We can be imaginative. I find it's oftentimes in boredom that some of the puzzles that I was searching for when it came to me looking on the internet for the answers, it's oftentimes in boredom when I'm just sitting with my mind and with just some peace and quiet and calm that the answers come to me. And so I do encourage boredom. The just other things to be aware of as well is the addictive quality of what I would call shorts, right? YouTube shorts or TikTok, these videos that are only like 60 to 90 seconds in length. I've seen kids literally just, and adults too, right? Just scroll one to the next, 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 to the next. I mean, that is, that's coaching a lot of challenges into the brain, from instant gratification to this dopamine hit to a lack of attention span, right? Lack of being able to have focus and attention. So again, just something to be aware of. And so there's a rule in my house that if my kids get the screen, you're not allowed to watch anything. You're not allowed to watch shorts. You're not allowed to just sit there and scroll, because I do not like how that challenges the brain on so many levels. And so these are just a few things, right? Again, make your screens red, turn off notifications, put it on airplane mode when you can. When you can, instead of a small screen, go to a larger screen, but also balance your screen usage with time outside, with time being imaginative and creative, playtime, and also time with boredom. And so I hope this, gives you maybe a realistic way that we can start to implement some awarenesses when it comes to our exposure to our technology for ourselves or for our family, so that as we're using tech, we're doing it in a smarter way. And again, I also always encourage this. And I just recently did this over Christmas break. And that was, if you can take an extended period of time, even a day or two, and put your phone down and not pick it up unless it's an emergency, I call it a tech detox. It is a beautiful practice to get into the habit of. So I hope you learned a little something. Let me know if you have any comments or questions, and I'll see you next time.